Bitsihanu, let Halegnir, Shem Hanukkah,
Baruch
Atah Eloheinu melech haolam, Shasani Simchaotenu, Bayamim Hahen, Bazman Hazeh.
So our program will last as long as my candles last, and then after that, that means we'll be done with the evening. So I think they last for 45 minutes or so, but these might be extended lights. So, and a game that I always play with my family is that we place bets on which candle will go out last. And so whoever gets the last candle gets the prize. So you can all bring that a new tradition for your family going forward. But happy Hanukkah. We are really glad that you are with us this evening. So we wanted to spend about an hour with everyone just to reflect on where we have been and where we are going. Terri and I did this about 6 months ago, and we are just finishing our 6 months of our new positions. And we are really just wanted to be with people and have the opportunity to ask questions. You can write questions in the chat box, of course. We'll open it up as well. You can unmute yourself if you wish to ask a question. But we really just wanted to take the time to reflect and then also talk about the future and update you on what's happening in our synagogue. So we'll do a little bit of a back and forth, and then we'll really open it up for discussion and conversation. But again, thank you. And so we'll just say l'chaim to all of you for joining us. Cheers.
to being together.
Being together. It's really nice to be able to be here with all of you. And so I guess we wanted to just start by like, Terri, you've come back to this position, which I think you probably were thinking, why am I doing this? So I guess I want you to reflect on the past 6 months of this opportunity. And like, what has surprised you the most about this past 6 months?
I guess I'm. It's been such a fascinating time doing this a second time around, and I guess what really surprised me is how dedicated and resilient our temple community is, and willing to try new ways of praying and learning and volunteering. We really needed to reinvent the way that we connected with each other, and what I learned, what really surprised me, how much kindness and how much compassion we all have for each other. It was very, very extraordinary. I also learned that I could do it again. Right, I could get back in the saddle. I could do this job again. I was very nervous, right, because I'd done it many years ago. For those of you who have watched me do it many years ago, so it was a wonderful opportunity. Well, what surprised you, Rabbi Prosnit?
Yeah, I would echo the resilience. This has been, of course, a challenging time, but I think our congregation has been really open to trying out new things. And we've had to really say, what is our temple looking like, and how do we still remain connected as much as we can? And I believe that people have really stepped up and said, I'm proud of the synagogue and the way where we're going. I also believe that, and that shouldn't have shocked me, but just with all of this, with the unknown of this pandemic, it's been something that has made me really proud to be leading this congregation. I think we have really been open to trying new things, and if it's not working, that's okay, but reevaluating, and I'm proud to be serving in that way.
Well, we're lucky to have you be such an innovative and creative senior leader for us, because we really needed it at this time, I will say. So what brought you a smile or joy during these past 6 months, would you say? What brought you the greatest amount of joy?
Um, I think the high holidays for me brought me tons of joy. And that's a huge surprise as well. Very proud of what we were able to pull off and the feeling that we were able to create both in our sanctuary when we were not, when it was empty, but also outside our walls as well. Um, Looking back on it, it was a challenging time just to think about what it would look like, but really proud of uh, the new programs we created over the high holidays, the new type of services that we initiated, and the feeling that I think many of our congregants felt, even though they could not be in the sanctuary at that time, that we still felt connected. They still felt that it was a meaningful worship experience. And so for me, that's something that's just, I think back at it and it was like, the high holidays were a joyful moment. It could have been a disaster, but I feel that we saw what our community can really do. I don't know if anyone else agrees, but I've heard from many people that the high holiday experience was much better than they ever anticipated, and that they felt connected to our congregation at that time. Terri, what about you?
Oh, so much. I keep smiling. One of the jobs of the president is we have to sign checks. So I would go into the temple periodically with my mask, and I would see, I wouldn't go near them, but I would see all the early childhood education kids, and they were there gleefully playing in the playground and, wearing masks, doing what they needed to do. And I just, my heart warmed. It was I just couldn't believe that we were able to pull that off, right? And really have an in-person school. So that was great. Also, seeing all of you in Friday night services after the service was over and unmuting, and everybody got a chance to connect and share and wish each other Shabbat Shalom. I mean, that brought me such joy. It was so wonderful. And also the generosity of this community, to the way we gave for the COVID-19 relief fund. It was extraordinary. And even for the Kol Nidre appeal campaign, we are such a generous community. And I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of us. And lastly, I would say, laughing at this insane time with the Board of Trustees. It's an incredible board. It's an energized board, but we laugh a lot and we have fun. And that's been very joyful. So what do you think, Rabbi? What do you wish you could have done better, even better?
I wish that we could continue to connect with those who are struggling with COVID-19 in better ways. We reached out at the very beginning to our healthcare workers and checked in. We've done that occasionally to other of our healthcare workers, but I think that I would hope that going forward, our healthcare workers and people struggling with COVID, or people, everyone struggling with COVID, but the idea that they can see the synagogue as a place for refuge or for guidance or for conversation. I don't know if everyone always thinks that, oh, I need help. I'm struggling. I need to talk to someone. And many people reach out to the synagogue, but I don't know if everyone does. And I want to make sure that people know that we are here for really difficult times, and that we're here to have conversations or connect you to someone else that might help you find a new job, or offer a place for meditation if you at the stressful times. That's something I want to continue to work on, fine tune. The feeling that the synagogue is a place not just for services and programs, but it's a place where I can have some spiritual direction. I can have conversations about God, or cry because I'm so overwhelmed. And I hope that I want to share that message more with our congregation going forward. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
Well, one thing I didn't get to do that I really wanted to do was to form small circles. I've been thinking about this. A lot of congregations have started to do this. You know, we want to connect, we want to build relationships with each other. And one thing that many congregations are doing are forming these smaller circles. We have some groups, we have the Chamishim groups that are forming, and we've had some congregational learning groups. But I really felt it would be so wonderful if we could kind of form groups around interests or topics that groups of congregants were interested in. For example, one of the things I've had a real curiosity with is possibly forming a women's spirituality group where we could come together and learn and learn about spiritual pieces through a Jewish perspective. So I'd love to do that. And if any of you here tonight have an interest in that and would be eager to do that, and maybe help us form that, in not just that circle, but any of the areas that you might be interested in, just let me know. And if you could help me, that would be great too. So I want those connections. That I feel like I wish I could have done. So what are you most proud of during this difficult time?
I'm proud of the hires we've made, and that's not only because Rabbi Appel's on here. All of our hires were on Zoom, which is insane that we hired a youth learning engagement that I see some people who are on that search committee, as well as associate rabbis, pretty much all on Zoom, which has been a challenge for sure. But I think that our new staff and clergy have really brought a lot to our community and new ideas. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of balancing this new job with two young children. We are very lucky that both of them are in school as much as possible, even though we've had some COVID scares in each of their classrooms. But the idea that able to be with Caleb and Zoe and Ariel, and also figure out how to lead this congregation, that's something that the balance has been something I've been proud of, and not always easy, but something I am really happy that I can do. And Ariel's on this call, so she might tell me afterwards that that's not exactly right. But I would say that it's something that I continue to work on and continue to be able to celebrate with my family, as also in our community.
So I guess for me, I feel like our temple community is thriving. Even during this time, we are thriving. We are doing so incredibly well. And I'm so proud of the board of trustees who is working so hard. It's a working board. It's a working board. And I'm so proud of the buddy calls. I'm so proud that we were able, I'm sure you all know by now, so that each board member has about a list of about 40 people, 40 congregants that they call very monthly or bi-month, every couple of months, to update them, to listen, to share. And these relationships that we have forged have been really incredible. And for those of you on the call who haven't heard from buddies, or you don't feel that, again, let me know, because that's an important piece. When I've shared this with other congregant presidents, they love it, and they've started to institute it as well in their congregations. So I feel like I'm just proud of who we are, and we keep at it. We don't stop.
Sorry, I think maybe it would be helpful if we could get into a little bit more of, like, those are theoretical and thoughtful questions.
Yeah.
We've been reflecting on, and I get to meet with Terri almost daily to talk about the synagogue as well. But maybe, and we're going to open it up to questions as well. But there are, let's talk about the future of the congregation and some of the challenges that we might be seeing, as well as where we're going and going forward. And so there was a question, people were able to submit questions ahead of time. And so there was a question about our current membership, and we touched upon that.
Yeah, so many of you know that our membership numbers are lower than they have been in the recent past. I would say our number is around 860 plus member families at this point. And I want you to not be nervous about that number. I want you to look at look at what we can do with a number. First of all, it's a big number still. It's not a small number of member families. There are so many things that we can do to really create a vibrant community using that number. The number is meaningless. It has no meaning unless we attach some crazy meaning to it. I mean, we have to adjust. I mean, the truth is we're going to have to function with as a smaller community, right? A little bit smaller community with staff. I mean, I'm going to be open and honest and transparent with you. We might have to adjust slightly differently. What really tripped us up a little bit this year was with COVID. It was hard, like even the staffing with the school. You were only allowed a certain amount of children in each class. So you still had to have a certain amount of teachers to run the school, or we couldn't run the school. But when things go back into a different situation, we can have more children in the school. We will look at all those kinds of things. But regardless, we have tried to be very financially responsible. And but I don't look at that number in a downward way. What about you, Rabbi?
We're 860 members. I think we were at 940, 950 maybe last year. So it's a big drop. And it's something that we are nervous about, that we are concerned about. Many of those people decided to leave for financial reasons. And we, of course, always tell people that we would hope that we want you to be a part of the synagogue no matter what, even if you can't pay or only can't pay that certain amount of dues. Many people said, well, I would love to be a part of the congregation in this moment. I am a part of this congregation because of you're training my students to become bar mitzvah, and because the hybrid model, I don't want to have my child on a screen this year. I'm going to take a break for this year of learning, and I look forward to being back next year. We heard that multiple times, and we have a list of those people who we'll definitely reach out to and remind them that we would love to have them back. We've also, while many people have moved to our congregation, moved to our area, the housing market, I know for many of you know that it's booming. There's not much in inventory. A lot of young Jews moved to this area earlier than they anticipated. We had a huge ice cream social for people who are new to the Westfield, greater Westfield area in this late summer. We probably had over 35 families there. Some of them have joined, and I know that when COVID's over, they will join because they want to meet other young Jewish families as well. Our outreach is strong in that sense. We had a great Friday night Tiny Tot Shabbat experience this past Friday with people who are not members yet, but they heard about it. We reached out to them and said, please join us. Tomorrow we have a Shabbat B'Yachad program for our K-5 families, and those numbers are up more than it was last year. So we're really excited about that. But as Terri said, we're not that 1,100 person congregation anymore, which was many years ago, not in my time here. But we are that 860 to 900 person congregation. And that's wonderful if we can engage our members in that sense. If we can act like an 860 and 900 person congregation. And that's what we'll have to do. And that's what we'll have to think about as we move forward. What are our priorities? Our priorities will remain the same. We want to provide a worship experience that is meaningful. We want a strong Jewish education for our children and our grandchildren. We want a thriving preschool where there's young Jewish families coming in. We want a strong social justice community. I believe that that's what Temple Emanu-El will be, if it's 860 or if it's 950. And while members, it's really always important to look at, I also think it's how we connect with our members that's even more important.
Yeah.
So there were some other questions about the cantorial search. So happy to share a little bit about what's happening. If you haven't signed up for a worship listening task force, I hope you do. We announced a couple, and we have two this coming week, and we'll probably have a couple more in January. where we're really thinking about what worship looks like at Temple Emanu-El. What do we want? What does meaningful worship look like to you? What are the highlights of our Shabbat experience for you? What are your dreams and what are your hopes of Shabbat going forward, as well as holidays going forward as well? It's similar to what we did for the High Holy Days, where we asked people what do they want from the High Holy Day experience, and they shared with us. And because of that, we were able to provide those meaningful moments for many of our congregants. So we're listening right now, and we're hoping that this, by hearing and by having conversations, and the clergy will have one next week, just us, to really delve deep into what worship is meaningful for us. We'll kind of create a document of our highlights or what our hopes are for worship going forward. And this is really the first step to our, hopefully our cantorial search to have a new senior cantor. We're excited that Cantor Novik is with us for another 1.5 years. We announced that in the early summer, that we decided that we wanted her here for another year. And she's thrilled to be here for another year and to be a part of it. And our hope is that we'll continue to have a search we'll start off our search for our senior cantor by the beginning of next fall, right after the High Holidays, when the search begins for our senior cantor. So we are setting the groundwork to kind of create a document and application of what we want in our cantor, because this is what our hopes are for our worship experience. We wanted to make sure that that was part of the conversation before we jump into it. Terri, anything to add to that?
Yeah. Well, also, someone asked about the link for these listening sessions. I think they'll be in the e-blast, right? I think we put them in the e-blast, but they're going to be in the e-blast again too. So look,
asked a couple of times.
They'll come out again. It's probably tomorrow. You'll see some more. When we usually on Friday we do another e-blast. So look for the link there as well. And we'd love to hear from you. So this is your moment to share what you imagine.
I misspoke just in the past. I might have said 860 people. It's 860 households.
Member, right? Family.
Make sure that to be able to have that conversation. So.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And also, we are in the process of having our search for our next executive director, and as we announced that Alice is leaving. Actually, her last day was a few days ago, and because as of the end of the year, so we are in the process. We've had over 50 resumes that came in, so it's very exciting, and we have a task force that's working on starting the interviewing process. And we're very hopeful that by the beginning of next year, we will be able to have a new executive director. And we've done a lot of soul searching about what was important to us. Like, what do we want from an executive director? And we focused on areas such as engagement and programming, and also development, because development's an area that, as we all know, we really need to focus on and we need to do well. So those are two areas that we're really concentrating on when we look for our new person. And of course, they have to be a person that fits into our culture and who we are as Temple Emanu-El. So we're working hard to do that. And what else? Anything else, Rabbi, that we're focusing on coming up? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, so as we reflect on like what we've done, I think it's really important to talk about some of the programs we've done in this past 6 months. And so we created a new program called Genesis Program, which is for our new members. We heard that many times it's hard to onboard or be a part of our congregation. So we had 2 of our members, Nikki Mazel and Brett Gerstmann, who led this Genesis project, where I met for 4 or 5 Sundays. The first one was masked in the circle, the rest were on Zoom, to get new members to get to know each other. And to get to greet each other and get to learn about the synagogue. They had a session with Rabbi Klass to learn about the history of Temple Emanu-El, to learn about the Christmas pageant in the parking lot, but also some of the social justice programs that we have done in the past. So they feel really connected to the temple. They got to meet with me and Terri to have one-on-one small conversations. They met with Rabbi Appel and Cantor Novik to have a speed dating program, and also got to meet each other. We would have loved to have a Shabbat experience for them at our houses or do some more social events, but it was a nice way for new members to really feel a part of our congregation. And so that was one program that we initiated just this past couple, just ended a couple of weeks ago. Our religious school has a new Hebrew program, a Hebrew pod program, which I believe our parents are really excited about. It's a 45-minute pod with about 6 people in it. It's now totally virtual. When it was nicer out, it was out in the tent as well as the on the front lawn. We've heard that the Hebrew of our students is really strong. It's getting much better. They're recording their prayers and they're sending them to their families after they master a prayer. But it's not just about Hebrew prayers. I think the connection between the teacher and the madrachim, as well as the students, has become stronger because it's been a smaller cohort. So that's throughout the week. And then, of course, we have the Sunday school activities for them to participate in too. And I think the last thing is we've been creative. We've had to be creative with our programming. And it's been diverse, I think, as well, and high level. And different opportunities for intergenerational programs. I don't know who was on the Hanukkah vodka making program. I think there were some people that were on. It was great to see intergenerational events and grandmothers and their grandchildren cooking from different screens. That was always fun. Where our Hanukkah drive-in was supposed to be last night. It was Tuesday night. It was a fun event. I felt like I was at a political rally in 2020 with people honking their horns. We've had the pet blessings, and so we've diversified our programming in that sense, and our congregational learning as well. And Rabbi Appel has done a wonderful job kind of spearheading that to like really welcome people in different ways. And so that's something that we hope to do in the future. And just talking about the future, what's coming up. We're starting to talk about Tu B'Shvat and what events we can do as a community. We're talking about Purim, which I can't believe will be a year of our pandemic. That's when we were basically closing down in Purim last year. But we have some exciting ideas. And if you have any ideas, we always want to hear it as well. And then we're also thinking about the future, thinking about when our next Israel trip will be. We're anticipating that will be in 2022, a family trip and an adult trip going to Israel. Our hope is that they're kind of parallel trips, that we can be a big Temple Emanu-El trip going together. That's something we hope to do in 2022 sometime, probably late summer. We are looking at rescheduling our civil rights trip that was been postponed like twice already. We're also looking at different opportunities to continue to partner. So Jewish Family Service and Temple Emanu-El, I think, have a really close relationship at this moment. And I think that was one of my hopes coming forward as the senior rabbi, to really build stronger connections between our partners. And that's with the JCC. I think we are partnering with Learning Together. That's with Federation. And I think a real model is Jewish Family Services. We've had volunteers there once a month on Sundays, giving out food as well as gifts. We collected over 200 turkeys to give to them over Thanksgiving. And we just done a Hanukkah social action event where we packed over 60 emergency bags for JFS. And we can hope to continue to have our Levi House programs online at this moment, but when we can come back together in person. So I think we're really setting the groundwork for some of the future partnerships going forward as well. Anything else, Terri, about the future events or programs that you see going down the line?
I mean, I think we just have to, we need your help. That's what we do. If there are things that you're interested in, if there's things that fascinate you, tell us and help us make it happen. All right. We're partners, all of us together. So we want to do things that are of interest to you too. So we can only create a certain amount of things. We're also running another leadership thing with the Joshua Project again this spring. So we're really trying to create and develop this leadership pipeline so that we have a continuation. And that's been a very important piece for the Temple community as well. So, maybe we could open it up for some
people
questions.
can unmute themselves and have conversations. I think we've answered most of the questions that have come to me in the chat.
But if anybody else has some things they'd like to ask.
There was a question about the executive director and we're able to hire so quickly. So we've already started our first round interviews. They're hopefully ending by the next week. And so our hope is that we will have some finalists that we will start interviewing at the beginning of 2021. And depending on who we offer it to, they'll join as soon as they can. But just to let you know that we have a wonderful office staff that is, and while we're not able to do everything we have hoped, we are everything that needs to that's getting done is getting done. So we are well covered in that area.
We're doing okay there for sure. So are there questions? Does anyone would like to ask?
Yourself and or thoughts about what we've said that you want to reflect on. I'd love to hear some things.
I have questions.
Yes, Annette.
I haven't heard I came in a little late, but I haven't heard the word senior in any discussion. Is there something anybody wants to say about that?
So senior in what you mean with program?
In age, senior. In other words, if you're aging out and then you stop coming to the synagogue, which is what I see, what can we do to keep membership? And I have some ideas.
Oh, good. You have ideas. That's great. Well, what are some of your ideas? What are some of the things that you think?
So I just finished my adult bat mitzvah, and we talked a little bit. The rabbi mentioned possibly a confirmation class, but also I was thinking your spirituality group would be an interesting connection for that group because they're all different ages. The other thing I thought about, and Rabbi Appel and I had a little bit of discussion about this, is pairing up a bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah student with a senior and having them work on their mitzvah project potentially together.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea.
We give the option for our B'nai Mitzvah students to be able to have a partner. I think that's I love
right.
that.
And if I personally had that connection, it would matter to me.
Right. Yeah, I think that's great. We taught adult confirmation about, I don't know, there's some people that were on that class. That was about 2.5 years ago. I think that's an opportunity for us to say we would love to do another adult confirmation. I love teaching that. It was a lot about theology on the spiritual aspect of the side of it. And what do we believe about God? What do you believe about God? A really deep dive into that. So Annette, I think that's right. Terri mentioned, I think you joined a little late, that she's interested in creating a women's spirituality group.
I did hear that. I did.
So I think that's something that we want to do as well. But those are great ideas, and we're taking notes as well.
Yes.
One other idea, I have a very large idea. In California, there are 2 synagogues in Beverly Hills that have merged together, and not as synagogues together, but they have an organization called High Village LA. And their goal is to have people age in place and to do what they can do to keep people living in their homes. So they have teams who volunteer to bring food to each other or take them to doctors. I go onto their educational programs. They're actually quite wonderful. They have a lot of cultural things from the community. And I thought, I mean, we are a community with other synagogues and the JCC that could nest together and tackle this. I know it's big, but I think it would really gel the community.
Great idea. Thank you. Yeah.
That's great.
I think
Terri,
yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about what's going on in the inside the temple a little bit with carpeting, painting, chairs being done? Is it being, at this time, it's a great time to do things like that.
Yes.
That was on our list, Dan. Thank you for reminding us.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. So the big joke is I kept talking about walking in and smelling the old carpet, but the truth is we have all new carpeting from the doors all the way through the gallery to the back. This was we had a small amount we put aside in our capital budget. So we use that, and the carpeting is already in, and it looks amazing. It looks like a brand new entrance. And when we come back, we're preparing to come back, right? So we did that. We're going to do the painting. We're already in the process of doing that, and colors are being selected. And in addition, we are working on repairing some of the chairs. I mean, ultimately, honestly, being transparent, I would love eventually, right, to rip out all these pews and put in chairs that are movable. Eventually, we're going to create a different kind of a multi-purpose use. Most congregations are going in that direction. So it doesn't have the sanctuary doesn't have to just be used for the sanctuary, but can be used for lots of different events and things going on in the temple community. But Stan, we're there. I mean,
and our live streaming capability is set up. So we have a live streaming capabilities in the chapel as well as the sanctuary now. It's just getting the final test. Thank you to our donor for really making sure that that could happen. And so when we come back to the building, we know it's not going to be a grand reopening of with a cutting of the ribbon. We're not going to have 2,000 people at High Holiday services next year. I don't imagine that. I imagine that we will be together, but I know that some people will not feel comfortable quite yet coming into our services. And so our live streaming capabilities will be able to be there for our services or a bar mitzvah. If you have if someone has a loved one that can't travel from California, they can tune in on that Friday night and Saturday. But also our Bible class on Tuesday mornings will be live streamed as well, because we'll have that camera capability in the chapel. And so that's basically the last touches, and we're training some of our building workers to help us make sure that it looks good and they can zoom in and zoom out. But we're excited about that going forward, as well as I was thinking of one other thing, but I'll come back to it in a second. But we will, so it's a fresh new paint, brighter. It's not that pink anymore. We took down that screen next to the Brody Chapel that I don't think has ever been used since it was put in there, maybe it used a little bit, so that's not longer there. And we're thinking about also creating a different screen that we can use to, when people walk in, that shares what's happening in pictures, and perhaps we can use it in services when people are still at home. So people in the sanctuary can still see people on Zoom, so we can still have that interaction going forward as well.
Great.
Thank you for that reminder. It was on our list, but we forgot it. Yeah, Brett, I see your hand.
Well, on that, which is being repainted? Is everything being painted, or?
Not everything being, the main gallery entranceway.
Okay. Is there any work being done on Greifer Sachs?
At this time, there's not being done, and we'll see if it's part of it wasn't in the capital budget for that time.
Okay, I was just reacting to that. My question is, we're, I guess, 6 months into midway through the budget. There were certain assumptions underlying the budget when it was adopted that turns out are not, I guess, tracking of where we are by way of size of the membership and the operation of the preschool. And I'm wondering where we are by way of the budget, and if the board has taken any actions to adjust midway or what.
So the thing with the budget, we were really, really lucky that we were able to obtain this PPP loan, which has really gotten us through. It was for, I think, $630,000, $30,000, and it really helped us pay for payroll. It helped us maintain. It was really supposed to be used for that. So we were so blessed to have that, because it's really kept us really in good shape. Our investments have done really well. At the moment, we are holding our own, and we're doing fine. We are going to start the budget process again. It's going to start early, and we're really going to take a deep dive into the different areas to look at what we could adjust. The finance committee that I pulled together, that Bob Kurter and Linda Leibowitz are co-chairing, is really, and it has an incredible amount of talent with people with strong financial backgrounds. It's working really hard to help us figure out how to make it do things responsibly, but also make sure that we are living up to the values and our priorities for the temple community. But I think we are doing well, and we're being very, very conservative and very careful in everything we do and everything we spend at this point.
There
So
has been some, we have begun the process of making some cuts in our programs, in our tight belt, in our youth learning engagements, as well as our preschool. So thinking about different teacher strategies or who can cover certain things, as well as health insurance for our staff. And so there has been some cuts that will help us get to a budget that, not a budget, a financial situation that we can make sure that we're going forward on. Are there more questions about that? Yeah, I think Mark.
I really have a question about you. In this sense, you came in at a very difficult time for a number of reasons. And you've been really, really working overtime. So how are you doing? Are you in danger of burning out? I mean, it seems to me that's a question to ask our senior rabbi. How are you doing personally and everything?
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the ask. I think it's always very kind of you. So thank you.
Well, we've known each other a long time.
Yeah, I know, right? So I'm doing well. I think there are some days that are more challenging. No days are a challenging day today. Both kids at home. Ariel's working and has a deadline tomorrow. Would love to be outside, building a snow fort. So, but I think that I feel very supported by this congregation, and the board and Terri, and I'm able to balance that. And we have a great staff, and so I know, like, I'm not always on Shabbat, and able to have a Shabbat experiences with my family is important. On every Saturday, am I on the Bima, which is, we have 3 B'nai Mitzvah this week, which is a lot, and they're all singles now because of COVID. But I feel that I have the ability to rest and rejuvenate. There are some nights where I used to be a very good sleeper, and I wake up and have trouble going back to sleep, and stay up and move to the couch because I'm keeping Ariel up. So there are some nights that I'm concerned, and I'm concerned about people who are in the hospitals in our congregation, and that keeps me up. I'm concerned about that I can always do this job or follow through with the things that I said I would do and not forget that. It's definitely an emotional time. And I think the hardest part of this COVID for me has been, I'm a hugger. I like to be with people. When I do funerals, when I do a Shiva Minyan, it's just not the same. And I'm sure many of you have felt that loss over this past 6 months, that I want to be with people. And that's why I'm a rabbi. I want to be with people to celebrate, but also be there to mourn with people. And while we navigate this through graveside funerals and Shiva Minyans on Zoom, it's not the same. And sometimes I say, am I doing as much as I can at this time to really support people at that moment? And that's a struggle for me. But thank you, Mark, for asking me.
thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes. I really miss the presence of our cantor, Michelle, and I was a little surprised at how long we are waiting to replace our cantor. I'm surprised we're not looking right now, or I feel like it was an extra person at meetings and other things besides just at services. So I was wondering why we have to wait so long.
So we're not waiting so long. We are going to fill that position in some way. We don't know if that will be an assistant cantor like it has been, but we are exploring what that could look like going forward. So while we are we have a cantor aunt with us till July 1st. Our thinking is that we will have some sort of other musical partner with us, and maybe it's an assistant cantor. That's the financial aspect a little bit of it. Maybe it's a soloist of some sort, but we are beginning to look, and that will start off in January as well, to look for someone to help us with that music, as well as the opportunity to hire someone. And so if we were looking for an assistant cantor, that we would be hiring them in February, or it probably would be coming from Hebrew Union College, right out of school. And so that process begins in late January, early February for those new ordinees of cantors. We're thinking about how we're missing that person that connects with our preschooler and our religious school and adults as well. And so we hope to be able to hire someone in that sense, but it's part of the ordination cycle that begins in right after the new year, usually around February, when they submit all of their paperwork and their thesis and everything like that.
So we have a separate assistant cantor who would stay on for a few years.
Yeah, that would be our hope.
And then we search for a full-time cantor for the same.
Yes, for that we would hope would be with us, like Cantor Novik. So someone that would be out of school. Our assistant, that's our hope. Our assistant cantor would be with us for a couple of years and then move on, or our soloist, or whatever we would call it, and that we would hire a cantor. So we are looking for a Janice, that someone similar to Cantor Rubel in that sense, that can connect with many age demographics and offer another thing that Rabbi Pell and I don't really offer. And so that's something that we'll hope to begin in the end of January, probably.
So I'm confused. Do we still have 2 cantors at this time?
We have yes, we have an assistant cantor. We have Cantor Novik, full-time.
Correct.
And then we have Cantor Ott, who is, I think, is it 2/3 kind of?
What is the role of Cantor Ott at this point, if that she's hired here until the end of June, till July 1st? What is her role if we have Martha doing, we have a reduced congregation size?
So
why aren't we looking now to fill that appointment, that role of an assistant cantor, as you pointed out, that can relate to the younger population, that can relate to the children, okay, and fill that role at this time? Why are we keeping her on?
Well, it's because of the clergy cycle. So clergy cycles don't really begin to July 1st. And so our hope would be to bring in a new cantor that might be just ordained from Hebrew Union College, and
Right.
they wouldn't start till July 1st. The cycles don't really start for most clergy until that July 1st date. That's when there's a lot of turnover. That's when new people start congregations.
I understand the clergy cycle,
Yeah.
but what I don't really understand is with all due respect, what we're paying for with Cantor Ott.
So we still have 80 bar mitzvahs a year.
That's the problem.
So we still have, and next year we have 76, and maybe a couple more, because people will come back. Like, could people come back, or there's some transition from this spring to next fall or next spring again. So we still have 80 bar mitzvahs, and that means 80 bar mitzvahs are trained by our cantors and we still have simultaneous bar mitzvahs going on at the same time.
Okay.
And so that's one of the main reasons why we are a strong congregation, because we have a lot of young families with bar mitzvah age students. And so one of the reasons why we needed that extra cantorial help is because of the training of bar mitzvahs. From 3 to 6:30 Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Cantor Novik and Cantor Ott are on FaceTime or on Zoom training our B'nai Mitzvah students.
I respect what you're saying, but with all due respect, I think that when I look at this Zoom conference here, I don't see one young family here on this Zoom meeting, okay? That's very concerning to me, of what we're projecting to the younger members of our congregation, okay, at this time, and the two cantors who we put forward here. Now, one Rabbi, sorry, Cantor Novik, I love her. I think she's terrific. But I'm not certain if Cantor Ott is fulfilling the role of relating to the younger group. And I'm not certain about that when I see this Zoom parlor meeting, or whatever you want to call it, does not have one young family on here.
Right.
That's very concerning to me.
Stan, the thing is, with these Zoom calls, let me be honest with you, what's going on with these young families? The young families have a very difficult time getting on calls 7, 8 p.m. They're taking care of their families. They're putting their kids to sleep. And what I have run into, even with the board meetings with I have a lot of young people on the board. It gets a little dicey with the different hours, with the Zoom and the kids coming into the calls. We're not dealing with a very typical time period. And the parents are educators. The parents are just doing so many roles at this point in the households. So
can I also let you know that doing this, there was not a huge amount of notice for this, and doing this in the midst of the last 2 weeks of the year. I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but my work is incredibly busy year end. And the holidays, and there are a lot of things going on. So I do think that this was, I appreciate hearing this update. I'm very appreciative that we're hearing an update, but I do think that part of the reason that there aren't that many people is there are a lot of things people need to do in the last 2 weeks of the year. And this was not a time pressure sensitive thing as a year end thing.
Yeah, it was more of a Hanukkah. We wanted to connect it with
wanted to have
light candles together. And I think we wanted to, every night of Hanukkah, we wanted something that was different. And so we felt that this was my idea of saying, let's try something different on this Hanukkah night, and to celebrate our community in that sense. And so that's what.
But I think maybe there would be more people and maybe more younger families represented if it was not this timing. Maybe I'm wrong, but
But it's also the 8th night of Hanukkah, and so families with kids are celebrating Hanukkah and doing Hanukkah family things as opposed to
Right. But yeah, I think it's a good point. I think tomorrow night we have our K through 5 Shabbat program with many young families signed on to that. And so I think that's an important aspect. And I hope that, I think one thing that Terri and I always felt that we wanted to make sure that we were approachable, and that we were transparent. And that's something that we've said in the beginning of our tenure. And that's why we decided 6 months passed. Let's think about where we're at this moment. We heard that was a desire of our congregation, and that's something that we really wanted to make sure that was happening too. But I hear you. I think, right, how do we have our, how do we get young families to be involved and feel ownership and belong? I think that's a struggle that we need to continue to work on. I think the Genesis Project begins that. We do still have a Jason Flatt. I don't know if anyone has joined us for our Kulanu service, or Sunday morning religious school. He's also a youth group person that he's young and he plays guitar. He's going to be leading with me tomorrow instead of Cantor Ott, our service. So we're trying to encourage that. But like Jenna said, that's something we're looking for in our next assistant cantor as well, and our senior cantor in the future too.
But I do want to reinforce what Stan said, because while it is the 8th night of Hanukkah, it would be nice if we saw some young people who did want to connect with you and Terri and those of us that are together at 8 p.m. It's not exactly dinner time. I would think it was a good time. And I do think there was plenty of notice. It was in the Hanukkah brochure. You know, we've all had plenty of notice for this. So I just want to reinforce, I agree, it would be nice to see some young families that wanted this connection.
You know what I've also learned through the years, in my wisdom, is that everybody comes to what works for them. Everyone participates in the way that they need to. And although we would love everybody in every demographic to do everything, it doesn't always work out. And it doesn't mean that we failed. It means that we are just, that we need to connect with the people where they are.
Different ways, right?
And that's, and it's okay. It's okay that sometimes we don't have all the demographics represented in all the different ways. Because truly, again, my board, I have a young board. I have a lot of young members on my board. They hear, they're there, they hear everything that's going on. They share what's going on. They're very, they work hard, they volunteer. So it's not that they're not participating in the Temple community and Temple
It's
life.
easier. I can drive you both.
Excuse me?
And I also think that for us, it's, if you know of young people or if you know people that are moving to your neighborhood, and we would love for you to say, you know what, I would love for you to join me at Temple Emanu-El on Zoom, or when we're in person, join me here, or knock on that new person's door who might be Jewish in your area and say, please be a part of it. Or if you know any of young families, or your kids have moved back, or they have friends that have moved back, or grandchildren that are part of our religious school, I want people to say, yeah, like Temple Emanu-El is so important to me. I'm here. I think you should come to this as well. I think that would be helpful to me, or Terry, or if you know people that you want us to reach out to, please let us know that as well. I've been setting up a lot of coffees with longtime members who haven't really been involved in Temple Emanu-El for a long time, and they're on Zoom, but I'm getting to know them. Right? I want them to feel that I can be their rabbi, and that their membership, their part of being in Temple Emanu-El is so important, and I want to get to know them better. So if you know of friends that are on a part of Temple Emanu-El that you think might be thinking about leaving, please let me know. I want to reach out to them and set up a time just to talk, and just to get to know them better, and share my vision for what Temple Emanu-El I hope it would look like. It's 9 o'clock, so we have a couple. If we can wrap it
I
up.
wanted to mention.
My candles are out, so yeah, Jean and Carol.
I wanted to mention how nice the Friday night service was. I felt so good being back on the Bima. The Zoom was, or it was streamed, or it was the Zoom, and it was wonderful being in the congregation again.
Yeah, so we plan on being back in the sanctuary this Friday. And then the 25th and the 1st we'll probably be back on Zoom just so our building can be closed and we can give our maintenance staff a night off. But our hope is that we'll be in the sanctuary, especially with our live streaming up and running, and starting to open it up for people to be there with us as well, if people feel comfortable. We still are working with our task force of COVID-19 doctors to really make sure that what we're doing is safe for everyone. But thank you, Carol, for that. I think we felt good to be back. It's nice to sing with people.
And another thing I wanted to mention, we Zoom every Sunday night with our friends that we usually travel to California with. And one couple is Orthodox, belongs very active in an Orthodox congregation. The other couple belongs to a conservative congregation. And I feel like we in the Reform congregation feel so connected during this period of time to our temple, and feel that we feel more connected than they do to their particular congregations, that we've really had so many things offered to us to participate in.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, maybe our last one, Dina.
Okay, so this had to do, Carol mentioned the Friday night services, which we've been going to and enjoying. I'm unhappy with the time of that Friday night service. Why are we doing it at 6 o'clock?
So many reasons. I think that we have seen good attendance at 6 o'clock services, better than 7:45. We believe that if we want to be an intergenerational congregation, the 6 o'clock is perhaps better for some of our young families, instead of when they're putting their kids to bed at 7:45 or 8, or kids can join us at 6. I think it's important for our services to be a place where all can feel welcome.
Can we perhaps vary it? Because 6 o'clock, so if we wait to eat dinner until afterwards, so let's say you're eating at, first starting at 7:15, and that's assuming that your dinner is ready and waiting for you, or eating really early. So maybe we could do twice a month, 6 o'clock, and twice a month, 7 o'clock or 7:30, maybe do it, vary it a little bit.
Right, you know what, we could certainly think about this, and maybe that's something we could, spend some time looking into.
I had actually talked about it with my board buddy, and she had mentioned to me that, I mean, because for me, 6 o'clock in the summer was okay, but I'm still working at 6 o'clock. And so it's a lot harder, even though it's virtual, there's no commuting time, but 6 o'clock is kind of
Yeah.
early on the working side. So, and she had told me that she has heard that from other people. So,
Okay,
Right,
Maybe
I
even
think
7.
the idea of varying it should be explored.
okay, we
I
definitely,
think and that's part of our workshop task force to think about that as well. I think for
Okay.
the opportunities, but I want to make sure that Shabbat is an experience that everyone can participate in, and that what we've heard is what I've heard a lot is like people love making dinner when they're like, some people like to sit down and have a prayer book, and some people like to have the part of it in the background and have a glass of wine, or
Right,
I'm afraid that people,
or
I'm
eat
afraid that
dinner
people
while
might not
you're
come to-
doing it, but
Right, I'm afraid that people might not come to services now, or like they like going to yoga pants, being in yoga pants, coming to services, and so we'll see what when we're back in the building, what our dress code will look like.
well, we'll see. Terry, the other thing that I wanted to mention earlier, has there been any consideration given to I don't even know how to say it, like outsourcing in the office, outsourcing things like billing? There are companies that do that, and not that I want anybody to lose their job, but we could streamline the office staff that we need that way. I know the Temple and Summit, Temple Sinai and Summit does that. They do, many of the office tasks are outsourced.
I think we are reevaluating the whole flow. When in the office itself, we're looking at every single position.
Right.
Process of doing that. Certainly it's something, look, again, I'm waiting for this executive director to come in, a new executive director to help us with some of these things as well. So, but I appreciate that. We are looking at these different things.
Yeah, because I mean, there are options out there for streamlining and for saving money that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think this has been wonderful. I've loved seeing all of you, and I appreciate each and every one of you, taking the time to share with Rabbi Prosnit and myself. And I wish you all a beautiful rest of the Hanukkah the last day of Hanukkah, and the rest of the year. And be our sacred partner. Be there with us and help us. And if you have ideas and things that you would love to happen, we could use your help in any way that you would love to contribute.
Yeah, and I would just echo that, right? We light our 8 nights of, we continue to build up to this 8th night of Hanukkah. And I think for us, it shows the strength of all the brightness of the candles. When we were lighting our candles today, you felt that heat where you were standing. And those lights kind of bring so much joy and so much strength. And I believe we are a strong community. I believe that we have amazing Temple Emanu-El family that is getting through this really difficult moment in our world's history, but also that is forward thinking and thinking about the future as well, and not afraid to shake things up to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our congregation, but also meeting the needs of the time. And so this is, it's been an exciting 6 months. I can't believe it's only 6 months. I got a little bit more gray and less hair than I had in June of 2020. But also I feel that I have a lot more partners and people that I can connect with to really help us move this congregation forward. So I thank you for taking your time tonight. I wish you all a safe end to your Hanukkah and healthy end to your Hanukkah. And look forward to seeing not just you in Zoom boxes in the future, but also in our congregation as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Hanukkah, everyone.
Awesome. Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Night.